All right, here we go. That's what we're talking about right there. That's beautiful. Hello, my name is Chef Ricky Moore. I'm the owner of Saltbox Seafood Joint, and these cooking videos for North Carolina Seafood are funded by North Carolina Sea Grant. All right, and today we're going to explore a different technique in cooking fish. All right, we're going to be doing a baked grouper with fresh herbs. Okay, so one of the things I want to share with people that so we can minimize the intimidation of what it means to cook fish is understanding there's more ways of cooking fish. Typically, when you see something, a seafood, a lot of times it's either steamed, fried, broiled, or grilled. And so now we want to explore baking, which is a very good way of cooking fish and also managing that fear of overcooking it. Because in this application, we're going to be employing some moisture to the dish and we're going to finish it in the oven in a specific dish that will help support moisture. Even if you may leave it in too long, it's still going to not be dry, So, all right, and I want to speak to what it means to store your fish correctly. A lot of times, when you go to your fishmonger, your fish market, please ensure that you ask your fishmonger for some additional ice, particularly the crushed ice. Okay, have him or her put it in a bag for you. Okay, and bring it home with the fish. And so when you store it in the refrigerator prior to cooking, I want you to store it like this. Notice I have the filet, all right? Now, it's not submerged in ice. You don't want a fresh piece of fish to be submerged in ice because it gets waterlogged. So you're gonna take a Ziploc bag, like so, all right? All right, fill it up and zip it. And then a lot of times you can put this bag inside the freezer and hold it, all right, inside the freezer. So when you bring it out, you can put it right on top of the ice and then it won't be directly on the ice. And then you wrap it up in plastic foil and put it in a little sheet tray or cookie sheet, okay? But this is how you should store it to keep it at the right temperature until you're ready to use it. Now, let's talk about the fish itself. North Carolina grouper. Grouper is a dense fish. It's mild, it's easy to eat, you can apply a lot of different techniques to it. Since it's so dense, I prefer a lot of times to bake it. Okay, and so that's what we're going to do today. And a lot of times people don't use the term bake anymore because it doesn't sound, as interesting as roasting or whatever. But this is a very good way of cooking grouper. And it's going to be a very easy recipe, really quick and really straightforward. So I'm going to pull the fish over, all right? And one of the things, if you look at it here, like I said, it's nice, it's thick, it's dense, it smells of the sea, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to portion this out, okay? And it's important that we make sure we cut the fish in very uniform portions, and the reason why is so it can cook evenly and at the same time, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to kind of find the natural separation in the fish, cut the fish down right in the center where there's a natural separation, okay? And one of the things too, the way when you handle fish, you want to handle it, you want to straddle it, so you won't mess up the fillet as opposed to letting it hang over, all right? So you want to take great care of how you handle the fish. All right, like I said before, you want to, obviously this part of the fillet tapers off. So what you want to do is, without any waste, you want to find the area where it's tapered off and create a little, like so, okay? I'm gonna take this right down the middle, okay? Trim this away. This won't go to waste. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with that. Okay, now we got somewhat of uniform loins, okay? All right, it's very important that you pay attention to this because this is where, we'll make sure that all the fish cooks evenly, okay? And so we're gonna take these loins and define the portion. All right, so I'm gonna say we're gonna get 3 pieces out of this. We'll start here and start here. Okay, so this is how we're gonna organize it. Same thing here 3 even portions. Now, obviously, some are going to be thicker than others. What we do is put those together. Okay? So we do the same with this. Straight down the middle, straight down the middle, straight down the middle. Okay, seasoning, really important, season. A lot of people may be intimidated in what it means to season things. Don't be, okay? Once you get used to what it means to season something, it becomes second nature to you. Sometimes you're gonna over season, sometimes you're gonna under season. The bottom line is, once that finished product comes out of the oven, you check it and verify, and then you adjust the next time you prepare. So for me, the important way, or the way to season things, is what we call the rain technique, where we just let things kind of fall over the fish, let it rain, and don't be afraid, because if you season high, you tend not to over season. It'll fall naturally, okay? And then prior to flipping it over, make sure you season all sides. So we're gonna go with our pepper meal. Same height, you don't wanna get too low. Make sure it's high enough so it spreads evenly. Now we're gonna flip these over. Same technique, okay? Now we're gonna turn this flame on to medium high, okay? I would say medium high. Gonna add a little oil, okay? And we're just searing these, okay? We're not cooking them all the way through. Just gonna sear. And you need a little bit of oil in the pan, not that much, just a little. Now, you know when the pan is ready, when there's a little whisper in the pan, and you see the oil kind of rippling a bit. Another pro tip I want to share with you is that, outside of taking your fish out of the refrigerator, which was stored on ice, now you want to get the fish up to room temperature. Reason being, when something is at room temperature, it will cook more even, and it would require less heat. If you pull it from a straight cold environment and then cooking it in a hot pan, now it's going to work harder to cook that fish. And a lot of times you lose the integrity of the texture of the finished product. So keep in mind, pro tip, make sure that your fish is at room temperature before you cook it. All right, here we go. I see that little whisper on the pan. All right. The oil is rippling. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna get one little, okay, that's what you want to see right there. And we're only gonna do it on one side. We don't need to do it on two, one side. I want to create texture on one side and keep the other side moist. All right, so when we make the pan sauce, that bottom portion, it stays nice and moist, and the top, as it's being baked, gets even more brown and crusty. That's the goal. Also with the fish, there's always a presentation side and sort of a skin side, okay? When the fillet comes to you, you can identify that by just visually looking on one side and seeing that it's a bit darker. You can almost validate where someone skinned it. And there's the other side where it's gonna be a little bit more white. So I make sure when I'm cooking the sear on that one side, I'm cooking it on the fillet cut side, not the skin cut side, which the skin cut side can be a little bit darker. Now at this point, you turn your fire up to high because you want to immediately create that crust on it. You're going to notice the fish, where it's on the pan surface, is starting to get a little bit opaque. That's when you know we're getting to a point where it's starting to be cooked. And we'll talk about the degree of doneness and what that means, but like I said, some of the pro tips here, reason why I'm searing it first, so it's gonna cut the cooking time in the oven. The oven, we're gonna have it at 450 degrees, so it's gonna be pretty quick, okay? But we're gonna cut that time down by searing it in the pan. So we wanna make sure we get that good color. All right, here we go. That's what we're talking about right there. That's beautiful. So now at this point, the grouper is cooked 35%. Okay? Now this is going to allow us time to finish it in the oven. And then when we introduce the pan sauce, it's going to make it easier for us to cook and have a finished product that's nicely brown, but also moist and juicy. Okay, so this is what we want. And so now the recipe calls for some wine, herbs, and butter. Okay, so we're going to prep those up pretty quickly. It's very easy, very straightforward. So we're going to need some parsley. We're going to need some tarragon. We're going to take the tarragon off the stem. So tarragon, parsley brings in a fresh note. Okay, tarragon brings in sort of like a anise or a licorice sort of flavor profile. Okay, and we're going to sort of pick the leaves off the thyme. Just kind of pick them away. All right, so we got all these picked off nicely. Now, keep in mind, this pan sauce is nothing more than a sort of like a complement to the fish. Okay, we're going to start with our butter. Now, for me, I like to get this butter sort of like a hazelnut. Well, let's not use hazelnut. Where I'm from, we have pecans or pecans. So we're going to get it to a pecan brown, all right? When we do that, what we're doing is creating a level of nuttiness to the dish, to the sauce. So here's what we want to do with the butter. Now, you see that it's bubbling, all right? There's going to be a point where it's going to start getting brown. And at that point, that's when I'm going to introduce the wine, okay? The herbs will go in at the last minute, off the fire. So I'll make sure I explain that to you. All right, here we go. It's a very quick process. You just got to be looking at it, and then you can see the butter starting to toast. Okay, you can see it getting brown. When you start to see it get brown, turn the fire down and introduce the wine. You can see even when I added the wine, you see that brown. That's what we're talking about right there. Add a little bit more. We're going to turn the fire all the way up now, so you want to try to reduce this a bit. Right, so when I say reduce, what we're doing is we are concentrating the flavors. That's what we're doing. Okay, and we're going to reduce by maybe a quarter, because we still want it to be sort of a light sauce. Okay, so now we're going to add some paprika, just a little. Swirl around in the pan there. I'm going to introduce a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay, we're going to turn the fire off now. Then we're going to add our herbs. And now we're going to spoon this sauce right over the fish. You got to make sure we get all those herbs that we cut. And so this little pan sauce here is very aromatic. So we're going to go right to the oven, 450 degrees for 10 minutes. And so here is the finished product, okay? And it's appropriate to serve it right in this vessel it was cooked in. So let's talk about something really quickly. How do I know this is done? So first of all, I got a visual. I got a visual that around the side, everything is very opaque, all right? It's a very sort of white looking color, all right? Another visual is, as you look at the fish and you see the natural separation of the fillet where it's starting to flake away. That's another visual, okay? Now we're gonna do a textural test. So now we're gonna look at it and we're gonna go like this. Boom, that's what happens, okay? So those are the 3 pointers as it pertains to grouper, okay, or any steak-like or dense fish. Those three little visuals there. The color around the outside, looking at the visual or natural separation in the fish as it's, where it naturally separates. You can see that's coming separate. And then also this a little texture. And then another final test is to taste it. That's delicious. Nice, moist, light, and nicely seasoned. There you go. Baked North Carolina grouper with herbs.